Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. The best security systems in all of East Tennessee can be found at Safety Systems for your home, for your business. Plus, they do life safety systems like fire systems and nurse call systems. Check them out online, safetysystems.com. Make sure you spell it right. And get to their website, and it'll lay out everything they can do for you. Great company. Give VFL J.J. Surlis a holler this week. All right. Tennessee could play Florida Atlantic, the 9 seed, or 16 seed Fairleigh Dickenson later this week in New York. Those teams play tonight at 7:45. Whoever Tennessee plays, UT is going to have an extra day's rest. Everybody else in the East plays tonight. Let's check out these teams so you can learn a little bit about them. FAU and Fairleigh Dickenson. You see their records. FDU was a bizarre. They got in on a technicality. They weren't even the best team in their conference, but they're 21-15. Their net ranking out of 363 teams by the NCAA, 301. Their Ken Pomeroy record, 274. Offensive efficiency, 146. Defensive efficiency, this team that beat Purdue, they're 353. There are only 363 teams. That is a horrible defense. That may be the biggest upset in tournament history. That may be bigger than Baltimore, Maryland County beating Virginia. Then you look at FAU, 32-3. They're from Conference USA, smaller conference. We get it, but go ask people about Ivy League basketball today. Small conferences can do. St. Peter's, George Mason, any of those ring a bell? Loyola Chicago. Net ranking, 13th in the NCAA systems, 22nd in the Ken Pomeroy system. And here's the thing, they're balanced. Offensive efficiency, 28 on offense. Defensive efficiency, 36. That's the kind of team that usually goes far in these tournaments, as we've already discussed today. So they're legit. Let's compare how they look. All right, let's look at Fairleigh Dickenson first. I'm going to keep this quick. You don't need to absorb all this. TiVo it. Tennessee's offense versus FDU's defense. Tennessee's offense has a lot of blue. You want to be red. So they get a lot of their point. They're better shooting percentage in the paint for Tennessee. Light pink there. FDU's defense, you want it to be blue, not red. Everybody scores on this bunch. I mean, look at all the red. So even Tennessee's offense might score on these guys. Flip it. Tennessee's defense versus FDU's offense. Look at all that blue on Tennessee's defense. They don't let anybody score, baby. That is impressive. FDU's offense, not bad. Not bad. You can see they're good in the paint. They're good in the three-point line in certain areas. But they're good where Tennessee is good as well. So not a great matchup for FDU if they get the Vols. Now let's look at Florida Atlantic. Here's Tennessee's offense versus Florida Atlantic's defense. The one place where FAU plays their best defense is the one place Tennessee is best offensively, which is in the paint. But you can't attack them in the 2-point range there. Flip it. Let's take a look at Tennessee's defense versus FAU's offense. You see they can score from just about anywhere. They shoot it well. Yeah. They shoot well from 3. They shoot well from 2. That would be a good matchup. Tennessee's defense against Florida Atlantic's offense. So I think it's fairly obvious you'd want to play Fairleigh Dickenson.
Fairly.
But I think FAU is legit. I talked to Mark Pankratz, and I think I mentioned this earlier. He said he would kind of like to see a bigger name in front of the Vols because they've shown they get up for those games. So the combination of FAU being top 40 offense, top 40 defense, 13 in net ranking, and not having the name, does that scare you?
You think of them as Memphis. That's what I would say.
That's who they beat.
That's who they beat. FD, if you're wondering in this game, Florida Atlantic's a 15.5-point underdog, which is a pretty high number in the NCAA. So that's who you got
in my bracket. I had them in the Sweet 16. Yeah. So I had them this far. Wow. I had them beating Memphis, and I had them beating Purdue. In my bracket.
They love to spread out around the 3-point line, and they've got 5 guys that can shoot. So, I mean, it's a quality opponent. You don't win 32 games or whatever it is by accident. So,
Jimmy, you're not as big on them. Or are you? Am I putting words in?
No. I think they're a dangerous opponent. I do, and they're not a name opponent, which is also kind of, I guess, speaks to Mark Pankratz's point about them. That you better be careful with this team. Well, you're talking about how bad Fairleigh Dickinson's defense is. The defense that Florida Atlantic, they allow opponents to shoot about 40%. That's a pretty good figure. I think it is a dangerous opponent for Tennessee, but I still think that from the average standpoint, you can't lose to Florida Atlantic. Now, they've lost 3 games. They've lost to Ole Miss, Florida They lost to UAB and to MTSU.
Yeah, they beat Florida, lost to Ole Miss, UAB, and MTSU.
Yeah, and the losses they had to those two, they avenged them. So they split with them. No, I think that's a pretty dangerous team. There's no excuse if you lose to Fairleigh Dickenson. They're
Agreed.
terrible.
Yeah, that's
No
that's
excuse.
the shortest lineup. Nobody's taller than 6'6", and they love to press. That's Farley.
And they don't do it very well, according to the defensive numbers.
That's right. Guys, concerns about FAU over FDU.
I think Florida Atlantic's very dangerous to Tennessee. You touched on the inside defense. They have a 7'1" post player that's the key to that, Vladislav Golden. I think their top four of their top scorers are sophomores, so that's one knock on them. Not a veteran-laden team, not filled with seniors like Tennessee.
Get it muddy.
But to your point, they have 4 guys who are averaging more than a three-pointer a game that all shoot 34% or better from 3. That's really good. So I think this team, and they run up and down the court.
Right.
So if they get down, they're not out of it. That's the most dangerous type of team to me, to Tennessee.
It's Tennessee. Can you get them to play at your pace?
Yep.
Bob, you worried about FAU? If it's FAU?
Yeah, I would be, and I think that would come down to Tennessee's offense.
And
Again,
and
I think you're going to play pretty good defense against them, but can you scrounge up enough offense against a good offensive team?
And we all agree that if it's FDU, you ought to beat them.
Yes.
Should.
Okay.
How did Purdue?
That would be
One-
the Georgia State of basketball, if you all say.
One thing I'll simply say is just a tip. If you're sitting there at home thinking, well, should we go up there to New York and watch them play at Madison Square Garden? Let me just say, yes. Yes, you should. I took a quick 3-day trip up there just a couple weeks ago to see the Celtics play the Knicks. I wanted to see Madison Square Garden. I've never been there. For those who've never been there, they call it the world's most famous arena for a reason. It is spectacular. It's a great place to watch a ball game. So if you're on the fence as to whether or not you should go to New York City and see the Vols play in a Sweet 16 game in Madison Square Garden, if you can afford it, I say go. That's a great trip and a great place to watch them play ball. When we come back, how does Tennessee stack up with the remaining teams in the East region? Who would they face on the other side if they get by FAU, FDU? That's next on the Sports Source.